fourth generation Kia Sportage mid-sized SUV enhances its offering in this improved form. There are two fresh approaches to diesel power, smarter looks and more sophisticated media connectivity. But the reasons why so many people like this car remain much the same.
How did the Kia Sportage quietly develop from an also-ran to a front-runner in the mid-sized SUV segment? Well, by offering more of what people want, that's how. This improved version of the brand's fourth generation model is affordably priced. It gets an all-new entry-level diesel engine and even delivers mild hybrid diesel technology for the first time. Plus, there's smarter looks, more safety kit and extra media connectivity. The Sportage model line dates back to 1993, but it wasn't until the launch of the third generation version in 2010 that buyers really began to take it seriously. More than any other car that Kia has made, that Mark III design was the one most influential in turning around the fortunes of the brand, to the point where, by the time of the launch of its fourth generation successor, which was the original version of this car in early 2016, the Sportage was accounting for nearly a third of the brand's total sales volume in this country. With the SUV segment's importance continuing to grow, soon it'll account for nearly 15% of the European market. This significance of the Sportage can only increase for Kia, particularly as the brand now has smaller Stonic and Nero models in this sector for customers to graduate up from. Right here and right now, this car's immediate goal is quite simply to be our market's favourite mid-sized SUV, and it's rapidly reeling in the current class leader, Nissan's Qashqai, on its way to becoming so. What's really helped in this regard is the way that Kia has kept prices affordable. The only mainstream rivals that can match an entry-level price of a Sportage, which is not much more than £20,000, are slightly smaller designs, all of which is crucial at a time when a significant number of buyers are being priced out of the SUV market. This is something Kia has not only recognised but has also put itself in prime position to capitalise on with a much improved version of this fourth generation model, which was launched in mid-2018. As a result, if you're buying a mid-sized SUV in this segment, you're going to want to check this one out, which is exactly what we're going to do here. A lot of work's gone into improving the engineering of the improved version of this fourth generation model, and some of it has paid off immediately. Now, into that category falls the new U3 series 1.6 litre CRDI diesel engine, which is quieter and more flexible than the rumbly 1.7 litre unit it replaces. It comes with much the same two outputs as that older power plant, a 114 brake horsepower unit that few will want, and a 134 bhp variant that gives you the option of 7-speed automatic transmission and all-wheel drive should you require those things. The base version of this diesel makes 62 miles an hour from rest in 11.4 seconds on the way to 109 miles an hour. With an equivalent front-driven format, the Kia 134 bhp unit improves those figures to 10.8 seconds and 112 miles an hour. Kia dealers looking to serve the increasing number of customers seeking petrol power in this class of car may be disappointed to find that the old, normally aspirated 1.6 litre GDI 130 brake horsepower engine continues at the foot of the range. We had hoped that the more modern 1 litre TGDI turbo petrol power plant from the Seed might have made an appearance as part of this package of updates, but perhaps this Sportage model's extra 191 kilos of weight was just too much for it. Anyway, the 1.6 litre GDI unit was one of the Sportage model's few weak links before, and it still is. It lacks torque, refinement and any sort of eagerness when it comes to overtaking performance. The stats, rest to 62 in 11.1 seconds en route to 113 miles an hour, don't look too bad on paper, but on the road any sort of short notice overtaking manoeuvre requires a degree of teeth clenching, as you might expect given that this GDI unit has only half the amount of pulling power that you get in the comparable diesel. There is an alternative turbocharged 1.6 litre TGDI petrol engine on offer, which puts out 174 bhp and which solves some of those issues. Here, torque rises from the GDI unit's meagre 161 Nm to a much healthier 265 Nm, and that's enough to improve the rest of 62 figure to 9.2 seconds and the top speed to 126 miles an hour. The problem is, though, that TGDI unit retails at a significant price premium. Now, if that's not an issue, then you might want to know that power plant represents a Sportage buyer's most affordable route into all-wheel drive with this car. Today, though, we're not sampling any of the engines I just mentioned. Instead, the power plant in this particular Sportage is one that aims to silence diesel doubters. Wouldn't an efficient black pump fueled unit boosted with a degree of electrification be an ideal solution for an SUV of this kind? Well, Kia thinks so, and they've installed such a thing at the top of the Sportage range, and that replaces the conventional 2-litre diesel unit that was offered before. This so-called mild hybrid diesel uses a 2-litre CRDI engine too, but in this case it's paired with what Kia calls a mild hybrid starter generator, or MHSG unit, which is linked up to a compact little 48-volt lithium-ion battery. The MHSG package is connected by belt to the engine's crankshaft, and on the move it switches seamlessly between its generator and motor settings. When decelerating, under braking, or when coasting, the generator mode recuperates energy from the crankshaft to charge the battery, and that energy is then deployed under acceleration as part of the motor mode, and the additional 16 brake horsepower that this provides reduces the load on the engine, which will therefore save a significant amount of fuel, well, in theory anyway. The battery and the MHSG also support a moving stop and start function, which automatically turns the engine off during in-gear deceleration and braking, providing that the lithium-ion battery is sufficiently charged. And to be frank, we haven't noticed that happening much during the period of our test here. What we have noticed, though, is the extra refinement of this variant. It can be quieter more of the time because the electrical assistance means the engine doesn't have to stretch itself so often. Complementing this is the swift, unobtrusive, cog-swapping nature of the 8-speed auto transmission, which has been specially developed for this particular variant and which kicks down without fuss when required. Like the ordinary 7-speed DCT auto, it features a selectable sport mode for sharper kickdown. That battery power boost increases the 2-litre diesel engine's output to 198 bhp, but the quoted performance stats, a 9.2 second rest to 62 miles an hour time on the way to a top speed of 125 miles an hour, pretty much the same as they were in the previous non-hybrid 2-litre diesel model, probably because of the extra weight this so-called EcoDynamics Plus powertrain has to carry around with it. That extra bulk doesn't do much for the efficiency stats either, all of which leads us to think that this technology might work rather better mated up with some of Kia's less powerful engines. That extra electrical boost, for example, would be perfect to help deal with the torque deficiencies of the base 1.6 litre GDI petrol unit that we referenced earlier. Now, when the mild hybrid tech does eventually extend across the powertrain lineup, as Kia promises it will do eventually, then we'll get a proper chance to see just how much real-world benefit it can provide. Enough with engines though, what about the way this Sportage drives? Well, not much was changed about that as part of the facelift package of updates. Now, if you haven't previously tried this 4th generation design, then your initial impressions might well be that it rides a little firmer than the class norm. Now, apparently that's quite intentional. In creating this Mark IV model in its original form, Kia's engineers spent ages retuning the suspension to work more effectively with the stiffer chassis and to create the more involving handling experience that they thought European buyers would want. Not everyone will like the end result though, and there's no optional adaptive damping system to soften things if you don't like it. To be fair though, you could quite happily live with it. The ride only becomes really unsettled over really rough stretches of road or particularly over potholes or speed humps, especially if you happen to be in a variant fitted with the larger 18 or 19-inch wheel rims. On the plus side, the damping characteristics chosen here do fulfill their remit when it comes to keeping body roll in some sort of check during spirited cornering, although you're never in doubt that this is anything other than a high-sided SUV. Ultimately, there's nothing like the eagerness for the bends that you'll find in a rival Seat Ateca, but otherwise, the driving dynamics on offer here are, well, they're pretty comparable to what's on offer in the rest of the segment. If Kia could find a way to engineer a bit more feedback into its motor-driven electric power steering system, then the report card might be a bit better. Ultimately, you still get the feeling that Kia's engineers are continuing to confuse steering weight with steering feel, and don't bet against that changing in the next generation version of this model. Now, we should talk a bit about this car's all-wheel drive system, and that's another reason why it's sold so well. Quite a few class rivals, the contenders, for example, for Peugeot, Vauxhall, Honda and Citroën, don't offer all-wheel drive at all, while others that do, the Seat Ateca and the Nissan Qashqai, for example, make 4x4 traction so expensive that they might as well not offer it. With a Sportage, you can have all-wheel drive with both of the volume turbo petrol and diesel units, and you have to have it with this 2-litre mild hybrid model. As is usually in the class, the all-wheel drive system is very much tarmac orientated, and it's one of those that keeps you front-driven most of the time, but when traction fails, it can instantly send up to 40% of torque to the rear axle. It'll be fine for light off-road use or for muddy tracks, although the modest 172mm ground clearance figure will quickly become a limiting factor, as will the very modest off-road stats: an approach angle of 16.8 degrees, a departure angle of 26.1 degrees, and a ramp breakover angle of 17.3 degrees. For seasoned off-road folk, those figures will be a warning sign not to venture too far from terra firma, but there is always a chance that you might find yourself with the wheels spinning in, say, a really muddy car park. In a situation like that, there's a selectable lock mode that'll keep all four wheels turning at an equal speed if you need to extricate your Sportage from somewhere that you really shouldn't have ventured with it in the first place. Probably of more relevance, though, is this car's potential towing capacity, which, as you'd expect, varies depending on the engine that you choose. This 2-litre diesel mild hybrid and the manual 1.6-litre TGDI petrol variants can tug along up to 1.9 tonnes, but the base 1.6-litre petrol GDI can deal with no more than 1.4 tonnes. Still, we don't expect to see many Sportages pulling along horse boxes or jet skis. This car will instead remain a staple of the school run. Ultimately, it remains an accomplished and very European-feeling package, and that's exactly what the Korean brand was after. Do you like it? Well, it's important to Kia that you do, because looks have always been high on the list of reasons why customers have bought themselves a Sportage. Now, the fortunes of this model line were turned around overnight when the previous pre-2016 third generation version acquired a sense of style. And the upward trend has continued with this Mark IV design, which in its original form got itself a bit more street-side presence, particularly at the front end, which seems to remind many of a Junior League Porsche Cayenne. Trademark Sportage touches include the windscreen's castellated top edge and the way that the rake-back C-pillar contrasts with the angled rear window. This is, in short, a confident piece of penmanship that's been further improved by the visual updates made to this updated model. Should you already be familiar with this design, you probably won't notice too many changes to this improved version unless you're able to stretch to one of the upper spec variants. Now, if you can do that, though, you'll get yourself a car that makes now a bit more of a driveway statement, thanks to this evolved version of the brand's familiar Tiger Nose grille, which on GT line models features this black blade mesh finish. Further up on pricey derivatives, the headlamps that are smeared back into the corners of the bonnet are now of the full LED variety, and they adapt themselves to the road ahead. All Sportage variants get a restyled bumper and enlarged fog lamp corner housings, which on GT line versions feature Porsche-like 4-point ice cube style LED daytime running lights bisected with dark chrome insert strips. Avoid the two cheaper volume trim levels, and you also get this lower front skid plate. Move to the side and the changes made are less noticeable. Most models get this silver sill line that separates arches, housing a revised range of wheels varying in size between 16 and 19 inches. We've got the 19-inch rims here. As before, the sleek, rakish shape features an almost sports car-like ratio between sheet metal and glass, and that's something complemented by straight-flowing character lines, narrow side windows and deeply sculpted sides. Otherwise, as before, what we most need to do is to draw your attention to the slight size increase that this car enjoys over comparably sized and priced cheaper mid-sized SUV models. The standard version's 4,485mm length makes it 91mm longer than a Nissan Qashqai and 122mm longer than a Seat Ateca. The GT line variants are 10mm longer still. The segment rivals that are longer than a Sportage, the Ford Kuga or the Mazda CX-5, for example, all cost significantly more. At the rear, top versions like this one get full LED tail lamps with special illuminating C-shaped signatures. The bumper's been revised too, and it incorporates restyled reflectors and reversing lights linked by a chrome strip. Top variants get this lowered skid plate, while further up we get this neat roof spoiler below a shark fin antenna. Time to look inside. Now, when Kia first introduced this fourth generation model, it made it easier to get in by lowering the floor by 40mm. Once behind the wheel, you'll find a driver-centric fascia that's angled towards the driver with flush-fitting fixtures and trim, soft-to-the-touch materials and smart detailing like the silver trim used around the air vents. With this updated fourth-generation design, Kia hasn't made too many changes. The design of the ventilation controls, that's a bit smarter, plus this three-spoke wheel has been restyled, and the instruments that you view through this are now more clearly designated. GT line models like this one also get smarter leather seat trim with red accents. Probably more significant than any of that, though, has been the work that Kia's put into upgrading this car's infotainment provision. This larger, frameless-style 8-inch screen now features with the top trim levels, but even if you have to choose further down the range and go for one of the cheapest variants, a clear, effective, improved 7-inch screen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto phone projection is provided as standard. It's a touchscreen monitor with the usual DAB audio, Bluetooth and informational functions. Plus, it features voice control and physical shortcut buttons, which make it easy to change quickly between the various functions. If you avoid base trim and get yourself satellite navigation built into this setup, you'll also get an enhanced range of connected services that this time around can also brief you on local fuel prices and parking spaces. As before, if you activate the connectable Wi-Fi system to your phone, the connected package can find you 4-day weather forecasts, update you on speed camera locations, get you live traffic information and offer you a local search function that can direct your Sportage to anything from a supermarket to a service station. Anything this touchscreen can't tell you may well be covered off by the further trip computer screen provided between the two main dials in the instrument binnacle here. Further up the range, this is upgraded into a larger 4.2-inch Supervision TFT display that gives you selectable digital speedo, compass and driver assistance options. The ventilation buttons are logically laid out at the bottom of the centre stack, and there's a climate button that also displays your air conditioning settings on the touchscreen just above. Getting comfortable in front of the leather-stitched multifunction wheel is easy, and you get a pretty commanding seating position, more so than you would in a rival Qashqai or Ateca. Some drivers might want the seat here to drop a little lower than it does, and these head restraints aren't perfectly angled to cushion your head over longer trips. All-round vision is aided by these slim A-pillars and also by the well-placed door mirrors. Narrow side windows and thick rear pillars make it pretty difficult to see out of the back, though, so it's just as well that a rear view camera now comes as standard right across the range. Now, providing you avoid entry-level trim, you'll get rear parking sensors too. Are there other issues? Well, not many. The ambiance is a bit dark and sombre, and the fake stitching along the dash top is a reminder of Kia's less sophisticated days. Ahead of the gear stick, you get twin 12-volt sockets, plus USB and aux in points, and an optional phone charging mat. We would have preferred the various connectivity ports to be less prominently displayed, though, or lidded away, perhaps in this storage box here between the seats. Now, that would have enabled phones and gaming devices to be charged away from prying eyes. The stitched top of this storage box does nicely function as a comfortable armrest, though. And there's also another small storage tray just here in front of it. Talking of storage areas, the glove box isn't especially large for what's supposed to be a family car, but we'll forgive this Kia that for its provision of twin cup holders of slightly different sizes to suit the various dimensions of your morning latte. The door pockets are big enough to easily take a small bottle of water, and there was also an overhead compartment for your sunglasses. Okay, time to take a seat in the rear. Now again, access is easy, and it's aided by the way that the door opens to an angle just short of 90 degrees. And that'll make it easier for parents to reach in and strap down kids and child seats. As you get in, you might notice the way it's easy to slide into the seats because they've been set at roughly hip height for an average-sized adult. Once inside, if you've previously owned or test-driven a rival comparably priced Qashqai or Attica, you should notice how much extra legroom is freed up by this Kia's slightly lengthier body. It really is significant, and it's aided by these scalloped front seat backs. Headroom's reasonable too, despite the sloping roofline. Not so good is the rather claustrophobic feel created by the dark trim and the narrow side windows. That's also a problem with the previous generation versions of this car. That's been somewhat alleviated on this top variant by the fitment of this panoramic glass roof, and with such an expensive trim level, you also get smart red stitching to complement the piano black trimming on the doors. On the plus side, Kia has fitted the backrest with a reclining function, and that does help to improve comfort on longer trips. Unfortunately, the bench base doesn't slide as it does in, say, a rival Volkswagen Tiguan. Cabin width, that's not vast, so three adults will continue to be as closely aligned as they usually tend to be in this class of car. At least here, though, things are aided a bit in that regard by this relatively low transmission tunnel. On a practical note, there are two coat hooks, netted seat back pockets, and door bins able to hold a half-litre drinks bottle. Plus, this centre armrest incorporates a couple of cup holders. Just below the central vents, kids fixated on gaming will be pleased to find USB and 12-volt ports, and as usual, ISOFIX points on the two outer seats are provided for kiddie chairs. Right, let's have a look out back. Now, the foot-operated powered tailgate that we have here isn't available on most variants in the range, and that's a pity because this hatch is rather heavy. Once it's raised, you'll find that boot space is about average by class standards. Now, it varies a bit depending on the engine you choose. Petrol models offer 491 litres, the 1.6-litre diesel has 467 litres, and this mild hybrid 2-litre diesel offers 439 litres. To give you some class perspective on that, a Nissan Qashqai offers 430 litres and the Ford Kuga just 406 litres. But the Seat Attica has 510 and a Peugeot 3008 591 litres. The boot opening's large and properly shaped, although the wheel arches do cut into it a bit. It's easily large enough for a big child buggy or a couple of sets of golf clubs, though. On this mild hybrid model, you don't get much extra space beneath the floor, just this narrow compartment, although that is useful because of the way it can accommodate the tonneau cover when that's not in use. Cheaper Sportage variants provide more underfloor room, enough for a temporary spare wheel, which you get providing you avoid this hybrid and the entry-level 1.6-litre GDI petrol engine. This shiny luggage bay loading sill will get quickly scratched, and the cargo area lacks a 12-volt socket. More significant annoyance, though, is that if you need more space and you want to fold down the rear seat backs, there's no boot-accessible remote release handles you can tug on. In fact, you don't even get a catch on the seat top shoulder, which means it's necessary to stop what you're doing so you can go round and open the side door to activate handles on the rear seat bases. On the plus side, though, having those reclining seat backs means that if need be, you can make those backs a bit more upright, and that might make the difference between being able to close the tailgate or not if you're trying to cram cases in on an airport run. If you need more room, the 60/40 split seatbacks fold to reveal a flat load area, which is 1,480 litres in size on the petrol model. With a 1.6 litre diesel, it's 1,456 litres, and on this 2 litre mild hybrid variant, it's 1,428 litres in size. An increasing number of mid-sized family SUVs have entry-level prices edging up towards £25,000 these days. Those that don't, like Nissan's Qashqai and Seat's Attica, make you compromise on rear seat and luggage space, which is why this Kia Sportage is so appealing. It's a slightly bigger car than the Nissan and the Seat, yet you can have an entry-level petrol version for about the £20,000 price point and a diesel for under £22,000. The variants in question offer either 130 bhp 1.6 litre GDI petrol power, or use the 114 bhp version of the brand's freshly introduced U3 series 1.6 litre CRDI diesel. The prices we just quoted apply to the base one-spec trim level that very few buyers want. The vast majority choose one of the mid-range two-spec versions, which have approximate asking prices in the £23,000 to £26,000 bracket. Now this, we think, represents a sweet spot in the range. With a two-spec Sportage, the diesel you'll be offered is a perkier 134 bhp version of that 1.6 litre CRDI unit that can be had with a 7-speed DCT auto gearbox for £1,500 more. If you're set on petrol power, though, the 130 bhp normally aspirated 1.6 litre GDI engine is at this level joined by an alternative turbocharged 174 brake horsepower TGDI unit mated to all-wheel drive, and that's a package that'll set you back nearly £2,000 more. Now, if this Sportage model's relatively value-orientated pricing prompts you to splash out a bit on a more luxury-orientated trim level, there are three to choose from: 4-spec, GT line, or as in this case, GT line S, with pricing in the £27,000 to £35,000 bracket. It's these trim options you'll need if you want access to the clever 2 litre CRDI 48-volt mild hybrid diesel power plant we've been trying here, which can be had with manual transmission, but it's more likely to be ordered with a bespoke 8-speed automatic gearbox and all-wheel drive, and it prices from around £33,000. Now, most customers for these upper spec trim levels, though, will be looking at something a bit more affordable than that, either the 1.6 litre TGDI petrol unit offered in front-driven manual or all-wheel drive auto forms, or the 134 brake horsepower 1.6 litre CRDI diesel offered in front-driven manual or auto forms, or as an all-wheel drive auto. Enough on the Sportage range. What about the value proposition that pricing represents? Well, in assessing that, we should probably start with this model's sister design, Hyundai's Tucson, since under the skin, these two cars are pretty much the same. Now, comparing prices between these two models is difficult because the spec levels are differently orientated. Now, at first glance, the Hyundai looks much pricier, with the base petrol model Tucson starting price, which is pitched around £1,500 above the equivalent Sportage, but that's because base Tucson trim gives you an equipment level midway between a 1 and a 2-spec Sportage. Ultimately, then, it depends on what bits you want, but by the time you've crunched those stats, you should find that this Kia still holds a slight value advantage. It's also worth pointing out that it's impossible to get all-wheel drive on a Tucson until you've paid well over £25,000. On a Sportage, you can have 4x4 traction for well under £25,000, and that's significant. It's probable, though, that the cars in this class you're more likely to be considering as an alternative will be the ones that most of the magazines will point you to in the family-orientated mid-sized SUV segment, Nissan's Qashqai and Seat's Attica. Now, both are a bit better to drive than this Kia, but more significantly, both offer quite a lot less space for your rear passengers and for your luggage. Now, if you're looking at entry-level petrol power, both the Nissan and the Seat can offer you savings over a Sportage 1.6-litre GDI, but if, like most buyers in this segment, you're instead interested in an entry-level diesel engine, then there's really hardly anything in it price-wise between these three models. And both the Nissan and the Seat are vastly more expensive if you want 4x4 versions. So, would Renault's Qashqai-based Kadjar SUV be a better bet? Well, lower-level versions are certainly priced very closely to Sportage levels, but the gap widens if you want a pokier diesel unit. And again, the Renault represents a much more expensive option if you're after four-wheel drive. To be fair, we should make the point that almost all SUV buyers in this segment are perfectly satisfied that their cars should be merely front-driven, and that's why quite a few contenders in this class, Peugeot's 3008 and Honda's HR-V, for example, don't offer that at all. The Honda, that's priced comparably to this Kia, but it's even smaller inside than those Nissan and Seat models that we just mentioned. The Peugeot, that's a nice product, but it's saddled with a £2,500 price premium over a Sportage. Now, you'll also pay significantly more for the PSO Group SUV from this category that shares that 3008 model's engineering, Citroën C5 Aircross. Now, that also only comes in front-driven form. As for other options in this class, well, the budget brand class entrants in the category, like the MG GS or the SsangYong Tivoli XLV, simply don't have the style or the build quality to interest a typical Sportage buyer. Slightly nicer SUV models like Mitsubishi's ASX, the Suzuki Vitara and the Suzuki S-Cross will save you money over a Sportage, but they're really a touch too small to properly compete with this Kia, and they lack this car's polish too. Similarly priced Volkswagen T-Roc and Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross models will give you that, but again, they aren't really family-sized inside. All the other mid-sized SUV options that do give you decent rear seat and luggage space, and which might spring to mind in this category, remain considerably dearer than this Kia. A Skoda Karoq will cost £1,000 to £2,000 more, while a Ford Kuga, a Vauxhall Grandland X, a Volkswagen Tiguan or a Mini Countryman will all cost around £3,000 more. And finally, a Mazda CX-5, a Honda CR-V and most versions of the Jeep Compass could cost you up to £4,000 to £5,000 more. If, having considered all of that, you conclude that the smart styling, the strong build quality and the spacious cabin of this Kia give it an edge on the opposition and justifies the required asking prices, then you're going to need to know just how generous this South Korean brand has been when it comes to the specification. So let's take a look at that now. Now, the entry-level 1 grade certainly seems reasonably kitted out. It delivers you a family-sized SUV with things like 16-inch alloy wheels, powered heated mirrors, LED daytime running lights, a rear spoiler, tinted glass, an alarm and front fog lamps that turn with the bends. Now inside, the key change with entry level on this car is that with this facelifted model you get a decent level of media connectivity as standard, thanks to the inclusion this time around of a 7-inch colour touchscreen on the dash. And that is your access point to a 6-speaker DAB audio system, Bluetooth with voice recognition, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, and a reversing camera. Other standard 1 grade features include cruise control, reclining rear seats, a trip computer, leather trim for the gear shifter and also for the multifunction steering wheel, plus USB and aux-in ports. If you avoid the 1.6-litre petrol engine, you'll get a temporary spare wheel too. As we mentioned earlier, though, the vast majority of Sportage buyers opt to buy into the range at the next level up, 2 trim. Now here you get a few features that'll make you feel a bit more of a warm glow of ownership. Things like smarter, larger 17-inch wheels, roof rails, rear privacy glass, power folding mirrors, auto headlamps and wipers, and rear parking sensors. Inside you get dual zone automatic air conditioning and heated front seats with powered lumbar adjustment for the driver, plus an auto dimming rear view mirror, an automatic windscreen defog function, a speed limiter for the cruise control, and some extra camera driven safety features that we'll cover off in just a moment. Arguably the key interior change for 2 spec models though is that the functionality of that 7-inch centre dash media screen is completed with navigation, and that's along with Kia's package of Tomtron driven connected services. Now these will give you live traffic updates, speed camera locations and alerts, a local search function and weather forecasts. Plus, this time around, the connected services package has been updated, and that shows the price of fuel at nearby filling stations, as well as the location and real-time availability of parking spaces. Want a bit more luxury in your Sportage? Well, if so, your starting point in the range will, as we said earlier, be with 4-level trim. Upper spec Sportage variants of this kind are identifiable by larger 19-inch wheels, LED bifunction headlights with an adaptive lighting system, LED rear lamps, and access to a fancier palette of metallic paint colours. Other features that you'll find on a 4-level model include a panoramic sunroof, front parking sensors, Kia's keyless smart entry system, and a front wiper de-icer. Inside at this level you get an upgraded 8-inch centre dash infotainment screen, and that's your access point for an 8-speaker JBL premium sound system with a subwoofer, an external amp and a front central speaker. Plus there's also black leather upholstery, powered front seat adjustment, there's a heated steering wheel, a 360-degree around view monitor, heated outer rear seats, an electronic parking brake, and an even wider reaching package of camera driven safety kit. Again, we're going to look at that in just a moment. On to the top sporty trim grades. The 2 GT line models are set apart by Porsche-like LED ice cube style front fog lamps, a dual exhaust and a bespoke 19-inch wheel design. With a straightforward GT line trim, you get all the 2-level trim features we mentioned earlier, along with a bespoke spec steering wheel, red stitching and piping for the leather seats, stainless steel pedals, a black headlining and paddle shifters behind the steering wheel on the automatic variants. The top GT line S spec that we've got here adds to that tally with a smart powered tailgate that you can open with a wave of your foot beneath the bumper. It also includes a wireless phone charger and cooled ventilated front seats. Plus at this level you also get a selection of 4 spec niceties that the ordinary GT line models miss out on. I'm talking about things like the panoramic glass roof, the upgraded 8-inch centre dash touchscreen, the JBL sound system, the powered front seats, the heated steering wheel, the 360-degree around view monitor, and the improved package of camera-driven safety kit. On to options. Now, you'll almost certainly be paying your Kia dealer more for your choice of paint colour because only one solid shade comes as standard, copper stone. Otherwise, it'll be a question of paying extra for one of the optional metallic or premium paint colours. Now, we particularly like this test car's blue flame premium shade. Aesthetic touches you can add include side body mouldings, side steps, side bars, silver tailgate trim line, stainless steel door mirror caps, and various alternative 16, 17, 18 and 19-inch wheel designs. For the inside you can add in door projection lights and subtle white ambient lighting. Roof crossbars are on offer of course, and to them you can add ski carriers, a roof box and a 2-lay bicycle carrier. As for other practical items, well, you can add in textile floor mats, door handle recess protection foils, side window deflectors and a takeaway package carry hook which fits onto the dash. An attachment behind the front headrest can take a tablet to entertain the kids on longer trips, or more practically a coat hanger. For the luggage area you can add in a boot liner, a luggage net, a load mat, a cargo separator and a dog guard, plus flaps available to protect the rear bumper from loading scratches. A trunk sill protector does the same thing, and the usual mud flaps and a tow bar can also be specified of course. On to safety features. Now, like other Kias, this one achieved a full 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating, helped by a tough, rigid body shell construction. We're disappointed, though, that Kia hasn't taken the opportunity that this mid-term update offered of standardising autonomous braking across the range, or at least making it optional on the cheaper models. Now, Kia's system is called FCA, or Forward Collision Avoidance Assist, and it's only available on pricier 4-spec and GT Line S-spec models where it's standard. Now, this is one of those setups that uses both short and long range radars to scan the road ahead as you drive, in this case at speeds of up to 50 miles an hour, looking for potential accident hazards. If one's detected, you'll be warned. If you don't respond, or perhaps you aren't able to, the brakes will be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. Otherwise, most of the things that we'd now expect to find on the car of this class are included. Standard electronic systems include the usual aids for traction and stability control, plus ABS braking, of course, with a brake assist setup to aid in emergency stops, and those will be advertised to following motorists by an emergency stop signalling feature that flashes the rear lights. All models get twin front, side and curtain airbags, and although knee bags aren't provided at the front, you do get ISOFIX child seat fastenings and front seat active head restraints, which protect you from accident whiplash. Tyre pressure monitoring, a pedestrian-friendly active bonnet, and hill start assist control to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions are all additional features to make the team sheet. Off-road, a downhill brake control setup is on hand to ease you down slippery slopes. And if you're towing, then a trailer stability control system eliminates trailer sway. Avoid entry-level trim, and you also get 2 further key features: high beam assist, which automatically dips your headlights for you at night, and a lane keep assist system, which alerts dozy drivers who might be veering out of their lanes on the highway. Now, from 2-spec upwards, there's also a speed limit information function, which pictures speed signs as you pass and then displays them on the dash. And driver attention warning. Now, that constantly scans your driving reactions, and if fatigue's detected, it'll prompt you to stop for a restorative coffee. If you want more, you'll have to stretch up to the pricey 4 trim grade or this flagship GT Line S model. We mentioned earlier, if you do this, you'll get the Forward Collision Avoidance Assist autonomous braking system. In addition, with these luxurious variants, you'll also get a blind spot detection system to act as an extra pair of eyes at speed when you're changing lanes or when you're pulling out to overtake, and a rear cross traffic alert system, which will alert you to oncoming vehicles when you're reversing out of a space. You'd think that even a mild degree of electrification might be enough to allow a 2-litre diesel engine in this car to match, or perhaps even better, the returns of the conventional lower-tech diesel 1.6. Not a bit of it, though. The mild hybrid 2-litre CRDI 48-volt Sportage that we're trying here is supposed to return 48.7 mpg on the combined cycle and 152 grams per kilometre of CO2. When similarly encumbered by automatic transmission and all-wheel drive, the 1.6-litre diesel version manages 54.3 mpg and 137 grams per kilometre. In straightforward front-driven manual form, a Sportage 1.6-litre CRDI diesel manages 57.6 mpg and about 130 grams per kilometre of CO2, and that's regardless of your choice between 114 and 134 bhp outputs. The differences between the mild hybrid model and the ordinary black pump fueled Sportage wouldn't have been as marked if Kia hadn't taken the opportunity offered by the Smart 4 model's mid-term facelift to introduce its latest U3 series 1.6-litre CRDI diesel engine. The Koreans had to create this power plant in a form that would meet the stricter Euro 6D emissions standard, so they've needed to include within it selective catalytic reduction active emissions control technology, which uses a urea additive which virtually eradicates all NOx emissions. Now, you'd need to top up this additive in a special tank every 5,000 miles, plus, as with all current Sportage variants, there's standard ISG intelligent stop and go technology, which cuts the engine when you don't need it, when you're stuck in traffic or when you're waiting at the lights. Bear in mind, though, that it won't function after a cold start or if the air conditioner is working particularly hard. We've just referenced the results of all those efforts, these figures being the ones that Kia gave us, calculated on the new WLTP cycle, but converted back to the most recent NEDC 2.0 spec, since that's what a lot of rival models are still using. And we have to point out that these stats still see a Sportage lagging some way behind the efficiency class standard. A rival Peugeot 308 Blue HDI 130, for example, manages 68.9 mpg and 108 grams per kilometre. It's also interesting to see just how far a Sportage 1.6 CRDI's efficiency figures are away from those of a similarly sized Kia Ceed family hatch with exactly the same engine and drivetrain. Now that Ceed is able to return nearly 75 mpg and under 100 grams per kilometre of CO2, although that is with the benefit of the special Eco Pack that this Sportage can't have. This includes low rolling resistance tyres, better aerodynamics and an active air flap on the front grille, all of which makes quite a difference. Now we would suggest that Kia finds a way of engineering it into the Sportage as soon as possible. But of course, that would only make so much difference. This SUV is, after all, nearly 200 kilos heavier than its family hatch showroom stablemate, and that's an awful lot of extra bulk to carry around. To be fair, that is the kind of penalty that all crossovers in this class carry around when they're compared to the family hatches that they're based on. And as a buyer, you simply have to make a judgment as to whether the extra style and space justifies the inevitable running cost efficiency penalty. So let's give you the figures that you'll need to make that judgment if your interest lies with the petrol-powered variants in the range instead. Now the base 130 bhp 1.6 litre GDI variant betrays the old nature of its mechanicals with a very unremarkable set of stats: 39.8 mpg on the combined cycle and 162 grams per kilometre of CO2. You'll do hardly any worse by opting for the much more modern 174 bhp 1.6 litre TGDI petrol derivative, which returns 36.7 mpg and 179 grams per kilometre in front-driven manual form, or fractionally better than that as an automatic. All-wheel drive doesn't appear to have much impact on the returns of the TGDI variant either. With that fitted, you're looking at 36.2 mpg and 178 grams per kilometre. And we should say a few more words about this top 48-volt mild hybrid diesel version, since Kia has gone to so much trouble to develop it. As so often happens with mild hybrid electrification, the additional weight of the extra parts needed tends to somewhat negate the efficiency advantage that that technology provides. Kia claims that the 48-volt setup can improve efficiency by up to 4%. Now that's not a huge gain, and to be frank, we haven't seen any evidence of it in our time with this car. When we tested the original version of this fourth generation model back in 2016 with a conventional 2-litre CRDI diesel engine, its returns were actually little different from those of this mild hybrid version, if not slightly better actually. Still, all technological advances have to start somewhere, and when Kia extends this electrified tech to engines lower down the range or incorporates plug-in functionality with this one, the technology's potential benefits will surely be a lot more obvious. Just to recap, in case you didn't hear us explain how it works in our driving experience section, the whole system's based around mating the combustion power plant with a mild hybrid starter generator, or MHSG unit, which is linked up to a compact little 48-volt lithium-ion battery. Now this can store energy which is generated when you're decelerating, under braking, or when you're coasting, and then deploy it to give a 16 brake horsepower power boost when it's needed. And that reduces the load on the engine, and it theoretically improves economy. Now the battery and the MHSG also support a moving stop and start function, which automatically turns off the engine during in-gear deceleration and braking. Unfortunately, there's no infotainment screen displayed to show how all this is working, nor on any Sportage does the central monitor have any sort of fuel economy section to show the success of any recent efforts at frugality. And that's really something that seems a particular omission on this mild hybrid variant. So what else do you need to know about cost of ownership issues across the Sportage range? Likely residual values. Well, they're a lot higher than they used to be on mainstream Kia models. Independent experts reckon that after 3 years and 60,000 miles, a Volume 2 spec 1.6-litre GDI Sportage variant will still be worth around £9,500 or 44% of its original value, which is very competitive by class standards. When it comes to servicing, the 1.6-litre TGDI turbo petrol variants need regular garage visits every 12 months or 10,000 miles, while all the other engines double that mileage to 20,000 miles. And as usual with Kia, you can budget ahead with prepaid servicing plans, and that's courtesy of the brand's Care 3 package. And that offers a fixed price deal covering your first 3 garage visits, and that's a package that can be extended to include 5 visits if you go for the upgraded Care 3 Plus option. In addition, a customer can now purchase services up to and including the 7th one, so matching the full length of the warranty. Whatever plan you go for, you can also bundle an MOT test in with it, and on that basis you'll have the peace of mind of knowing that virtually all maintenance costs will probably be covered for the entire time that your name's going to be on the logbook. And now an even stronger buying incentive is the much trumpeted 7-year 100,000 mile warranty, which, like the Care 3 servicing package, is transferable to future owners. However, it is worth pointing out, of course, that the warranty only offers unlimited mileage for the first 3 years that you own the car. Thereafter, you'll have a 100,000 mileage restriction. If in future the car is sold through a Kia approved used dealership when it's less than 18 months old or with less than 18,000 miles on the clock, the warranty will be topped up to match that of the new model. And finally, well, you might want to note that roadside assistance cover is limited to 1 year, but you do get a long 12-year bodywork warranty. As for insurance, well, groupings start at Group 13E for a 1.6-litre GDI petrol model. The 1.6-litre TGDI petrol model is rated between Groups 18E and 22E, depending on spec. For the base 114 bhp 1.6-litre CRDI diesel, you're looking at Group 15E. For that 1.6-litre CRDI engine with 134 bhp, ratings vary between 14 and 21E, depending on spec. For this 2-litre CRDI 48-volt mild hybrid, ratings start at Group 21E for the 4-spec model, and they rise to Group 24E for the GT line version and Group 25E for this top GT line S variant. Over a quarter of a century ago, in 1993, Kia introduced a smart, capable, compact SUV called the Sportage. We really liked the car, but hardly anyone else took much notice of it. Today, a Sportage is globally sold every 69 seconds, making it Kia's international bestseller, and total production has long since passed the 5 million mark. It's quite an evolution. This 4th generation model epitomises many of the reasons why buyers like this car so much. You get more space for less money than almost any other mid-sized SUV in the class, yet the looks have the suggestion of a pricier premium model. It's better equipped than most rivals, and the Slovakian factory builds it better too. A segment-leading 7-year warranty is the icing on the cake. The improvements made to this design have added a bit of polish to the product without fundamentally altering its appeal a great deal. The mild hybrid diesel technology we've been looking at here gives Kia something fresh to talk about, but all the time it's limited to the largest engine and to the priciest variants. It'll be irrelevant for most likely buyers. Now, we look forward to seeing this 48-volt tech added further down the range. The breathless, normally aspirated entry-level petrol engine really needs it. That unit remains a weak link in the lineup. Across the range, some may find the ride a little firm too. There's not much else to criticise though. We think the important development here lies with the introduction of the other diesel fresh to the lineup, the entry-level U3 series 1.6-litre unit, which is the one that we'd direct you to in the range. And it's offered for the kind of money that other brands will charge you for an SUV from the next class down. In summary, well, yes, you could pay much more for an apparently more sophisticated family SUV of this kind, but after trying a Sportage, you might well end up questioning the need to, which really says it all.